Please speak up.
As many people that have cancer, they also eat chicken, but we don't say that it's the chicken that's causing the
Oh
cancer.
my gosh.
As
Oh
many
my.
people drink water as people that smoke cigarettes, but we don't never talk about water and its effects. Cancer.
Hmm.
How about them hamburgers?
And that's a good point.
How
Now,
about the microwave oven?
I'm
I'm
with
just
you on.
saying. I'm just saying. I'm just joking. But I mean, in all seriousness, yes, it's definitely from my perspective, it's an addition. It's an outside oxidant. And I want to go back because the brother brought up a point, and I want us not to miss it. The hereditary thing is not a promise, because the genes are turned on by environment and things that we do and things that we put into ourselves. So the genes, just because you might have a family history, does not mean that you necessarily have to get cancer. And this, a lot of us don't even understand how powerful our minds are, because those that don't really understand that, Dr.Jacks could go in and tell y'all about psychosomatic sicknesses or placebo effect. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of us, we trick ourselves into being, well, we assist our body in being sick by what we put in it, how we think, and that causes genes to turn on. Then when we put ourselves in stressful situations, good grief, combination, that's horrible.
Mhm, mhm. I totally agree with that. And not just if someone in your family has been diagnosed with cancer, but any disorder or disease. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's something that we're going to have. But we have to make a conscious decision. Like, I love what you said, Kathy, in terms of how you decide, okay, I'm going to be more careful with what I put into my body. I'm just going to add words to what you're saying, but I'm going to change my lifestyle. And one question I had was, have you noticed that since you have been given this diagnosis and that you are a survivor, have you noticed that this lifestyle change is something that you're very happy with? Is this something that you plan on continuing with, this whole lifestyle change? And I have so many other questions, but you could just those two.
Well, I do intend to continue to be conscious about what I put in my body, because not only do I want to try to ward off anything else, but I want to live longer. And I believe things we put into our body can harm us if we're not careful about what we do. Not that I'm so perfect that I will never have anything, but I'm going to do my best to try to prevent as much as possible now that I am more aware. And so therefore, when you know better, you should do better. Not that we always do better, but I'm going to try to do better. It is my goal. I want to live longer. So if this is going to help or live a longer, healthier life, if this is going to help me do that, then that's what I want to do. And it's not always easy, but I'm going to try to do it as much as possible.
What are some challenges that you face with having changed your lifestyle?
Is it a certain area you're asking about, or?
Well, because you said that it's not, easy. So
I was thinking along the eating lines, because
right.
I like to eat everything.
Mhm.
I have a very good appetite, so I've been trying to find ways of maybe choosing better foods, or whenever I snack, to try to choose a healthier snack. And so, and not just because my mind, I don't try to eat every time my mind says, oh, it's time to eat. I limit myself, because just because my mind says it doesn't mean that I'm supposed to be eating, or that I need to eat. So therefore I'm having to try to train my mind to kind of change it. Because if I'm sitting around and not necessarily busy, not necessarily doing anything, I'm gonna be thinking about eating, but I don't necessarily need to eat, So therefore I have to kind of retrain my mind And then when I do feel like I have to have something, I try to choose better snack choices. So
So
that's when it's been hard.
are you do you like fruits and vegetables?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, do you get a special type of fruits and vegetables? Because there's some people that go as far as organic type stuff, or have
I
you
do
cut?
look for organic stuff.
It,
And I have to limit certain things again because of being pre-diabetic. Grapes are
Mhm.
high in sugar. I love grapes, but
yes.
they're high in sugar. Bananas, they help with my potassium. Again, they're high in sugar. So I have to be very careful about, even though I love fruits and fruits are supposed to be better for you, but for
Mhm.
my situation, I need to limit certain fruits.
Do you? Did your doctor speak to you, or have you ever heard of intermittent fasting?
I've heard of it. My doctor hasn't spoken to me about it, but I've heard of it. Friends have done it. I've known relatives to have done that.
And there's a lot of information out there about intermittent fasting, and sometimes we probably are doing intermittent fasting without even knowing it. Especially like if you get up in the morning and you just start your day, you don't eat anything, and if you've had a long night's sleep, that's potentially 8 hours of sleep plus however long it takes before you actually eat something. So you could get a good intermittent fasting in the morning when the body begins to detox itself naturally. I wanted to ask about the support system. How important is it to have a support system, and who has been your support system during this journey?
Um, oh, it is very important to have a support system. Since I was diagnosed in 2020, started my treatments in March. So of course that was at the height of the pandemic. This was
Oh,
my support system. So
I'm Team Kathy.
um,
so are we.
he he was, because we could not have visitors, couldn't go anywhere. He was the only person that was here. So, or as far as my doctors advised, stay away from everybody at that time, because he was even limited to where he couldn't go in with me for my treatments.
Wow.
Um, he could not. He went to. He was able to go in my first one, and after that, when everything was shut down, he had to either wait in the parking lot or go back home because everything was closed. So he was not even able to go with me into the treatment room. And so those days he would make 4 trips a day, on my treatment days, because he couldn't go in. There was no place for him to go. Malls were closed, restaurants, everywhere was closed. So he would just come back home until time to pick me up. And my treatments were, I had to be there at 7:30 in the morning, and I generally would probably finish about 4. So I didn't want him just sitting around all that time in the parking lot, because he couldn't even wait in the waiting room of the hospital.
Right.
So he was the support system, the physical support system, but I did have family and friends who would call, do porch drop-offs,
Right.
texts, but it was and prayer partners, it was very important to have a support system, simply because, I was just home all that time. And then, your mind start doing some crazy
Yes,
things
it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it
when
does.
not only because I was sick, I just felt, gosh, we're where we can't have a visitor. No one could come in to just say, I just want to talk with you. Of course the phone was good, but you didn't have that physical contact.
Can I? Let me just ask this. Well, first, I want to celebrate your husband. I wish I could give my applause to work on here, but the only thing that comes to my mind is that song to say, "What you won't do for love.
Amen, brother.
You tried everything, but
Everything, but you
But you
won't.
won't give up.
there you
Yes,
go.
sir.
Now, but let me ask you a question. Could the isolation also? Well, how can I frame it? Could the isolation have been kind of good as well? I mean, was there some good that
Yeah,
came out of it?
Yes.
yeah, because there are people, of course, we know, who just want to come by to be nosy, see how you
Ah.
look. Everybody's not genuine. And so when I lost my hair, when I went through, not that I would care, because not having hair was not my thing. I was fighting for my life. I wanted to live. If I didn't have any hair, oh well, I was trying to live. But there are people who would you have some genuine people, and you can tell who are genuine, and others will just kind of want to be nosy to see how you look, how are you dealing with the situation that you're in. So yeah, sometimes I didn't have to go with all the stares. I didn't have to get all the stares from people because I was home. We weren't receiving visitors, and I wasn't going in. The only place I was going was to treatment and back home. Wasn't going to these stores because we couldn't go in. And there was time when he had to do all the shopping. He had to limit his contact as well because he was here having to be caretaker. So yeah, some of the isolation was for good. It wasn't all bad. It was just bad when those times when my mind did other things.
Right, right. So what was for somebody that might be in that situation or might not have a support network at all? What were some of the things that you would do to kind of turn it around when our mind, because one of the key pieces in self-mastery or in the rites of passage is they say the ancients, before they would let you into initiation, you had to have control of thought. What clues, what ideas could you give people to think about when they get in those situations where it's a dire situation and those thoughts are coming? How did you deal with it?
First thing was prayer. I have certain scriptures that I keep in mind, that I latched on to certain scriptures during that particular time. And I'm gonna say the enemy, as well as I know certain scriptures, when I would try to say them in those situations, because a lot of times this happened at night when I would try to say them, I couldn't remember the scriptures, and I knew that was just the work of the enemy because I know the scripture from beginning to end. So I'm like, okay, not today, devil, not tonight, devil. I just kept starting over. But in my during those times, reach out to someone. But when you can't find anyone, because there were times when I did reach out to other people, I didn't get a response, or I'm busy, I'll call you back later. Later never came. So I had to reach deep down in myself and said, okay, well, they don't have time, and I understand people are busy, and sometimes people just don't know what to say. I did a lot of reading.
I actually want to say this too, Brother Hightail. The one thing I actually tried to do to keep her occupied a lot of times, I made her laugh. I guess a lot of people don't understand how important laughter is in your life, particularly as a medicine of healing, because I would actually do something crazy in front of her. So later on, when she actually had those thoughts pop up, she'll think back to me and like, that crazy husband I got, just to occupy her time.
But being that I'm an only child, I'm used to being by myself. So there are some people who have siblings or maybe in that situation and are not used to being by themselves. It may be a little bit harder. I won't say that I'm not a people person, but I'm okay without people. I can be okay without people, because sometimes even he's here, I'm like, okay, I gotta do me out, But for those who are who have to have that person-to-person contact, it's a little bit harder. It may be a little bit harder for them with that isolation or when they don't have that support. I would say prayer is the first thing to do, and a lot of it. Read your scriptures, find you something that you like to, would like to do. Learn a new hobby. YouTube have a lot of stuff on it that you could learn to do to occupy your time. Do some, I'll say, easy remodeling in the home. Do some whatever you have to do to keep your mind occupied, because the enemy works on your mind. If he can get you in your mind, then he feels that he has you. So you have to stop those thoughts. You have to talk positive to yourself, speak life to yourself at all times. Even now, even though I'm not receiving treatment, I'm going through other things, I still have to speak life to myself.
Can I also say this? Can I also say this as well? at the same time, while we're dealing with the individual who's going through the sickness, we also got to deal with the individuals that are caregivers. I've actually had to learn.
I was going to ask that, like, what support do you get as a caregiver?
I actually had to get support from her.
Hmm.
She actually supported me just as much as I supported her, because every day that she stayed positive, I had no choice but to stay positive.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't even realize this. A lot of nights when she actually laid down to sleep, I would sit up for hours and just watch her sleep, because that was the one time that I actually saw her at peace when she slept. And then, like I'm saying, I had the same thing she was saying, being during the height of the pandemic, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't be around anybody. So I had nobody. I really found out why she's my best friend at that particular point in time.
And that is so
because and I'll tell you, one of the stories was the day I actually realized how close we really were. Upon her losing her hair on Easter weekend, I actually shaved it for her, and we took a picture together. And that actually brought a different kind of closeness to us, which made me realize that's why I was in the fight with her every single day, because I wanted her to get better too. I wanted my best friend to be here. I didn't want to be alone.
Right, right.
Going back to the point you said about making her laugh, there was a movie by Robin Williams. I had to look it up. Came out in 1998. It was about a doctor by the name of Patch Adams. It's a true story, and the whole clinic was based up on laughter. We also, those that missed the show, we had Brother Kenny on here talking about laughter and how it helps us move through. So there's a lot of medical benefits to joy and laughter.
Yes.
But I want to ask this. I was trying to let Dr.Jacks go on and ask. She's not asking it. Where did you come up with that dope title?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Brother Hatem. That was leading into the question for her to elaborate a little more about the book.
That was a group effort with the entire 22 ladies. You know, that was more of a group effort than just an individual. You know, because there were 22 of us, and because each of us had a different story, although we had a similar sickness, it was a different story for everybody. So we all were high, we were all low at one point in time. So it was a group effort.
Okay. And how did you end up hooking up with the group so that how did you get chosen for the project?
Oh, this is a part of our breast cancer support group, and the founder of the group, this was her vision, and so she was a visionary for the book, and she asked others to join, and those who wanted to join were given the opportunity. She gave everybody the opportunity, and those who took it. Some people were not able to at the time, and others chose not to. So those of us who wanted that opportunity, we went with it. So it was kind of where she asked, I got this vision to do this. Do you want to be a part of it? It was just yes or no.
Was this during the sickness, or was this after?
This for me, this was afterwards.
Okay.
Some of the others are going through. But for myself, this was after.
Word. How therapeutic you think it is to write about some of the personal, like being in those valleys?
Oh, it for me, I guess I can only speak for me. It was very helpful, even though this was after my treatments were over. There were things that I guess I went through that I wanted to say, but at the time, or wanted to put down, but at the time I was just too sick to do it. So this helped me deal with what I went through in I'm gonna say a positive way. Now I could put my thoughts down, because during that time I journaled some during my treatments, but some of those times I just didn't feel like doing it. So this was a way for me to go back and have something as a way of remembering what I actually went through. Although I didn't tell everything, but it was a way for me to help. I said, okay, so this is what I actually did. And so that was a way it brought out thoughts that maybe during the time I just didn't concentrate on, because I was just trying to feel better.
Right.
So it was very therapeutic for me.
Do you go back and help other people through?
I try to. Some people are so private. They don't want to talk about it. They don't
Right.
want to. They don't want to open up, or they're not ready to accept it, or they just want to go through and don't want to talk about it. But I try to be as open with them as possible so that they can feel comfortable opening up and sharing. So if for our group, our breast cancer group is called Faith Strong. And so we welcome anybody who who's going through treatment, who's been recently diagnosed, who are in remission, or whatever state that you're in, you're welcome. Welcome to join. We're a big sisterhood, and whereas we're prayer partners, we check up on each other, and we'll not only serve people who are right here in South Carolina, we have people who are in other states. We send love mail, just however it is that we can help you get through what you're going through, we're willing to do for you.
How important is it? Because you said a key word. How important was acceptance of what was going on? Well, did you go through a point where it was like kind of denial? And did you notice a difference once you accepted?
Maybe not denial, it was disbelief. I was shocked because I'm one where I was trying to be proactive. I started getting mammograms at the age of 40. So from 40, because I was diagnosed at 53. So from age of 40 to 53, I never missed a year from getting mammograms. And so when I was diagnosed, I'm like, who, me? Really? So I was shocked, in disbelief, and probably scared out of my mind. But then I realized that this did not come as a surprise to God. So I said, look at here, God, you got to get me through this. And then I began to fight. Of course, there were many crying days. This is something I've never experienced it closely with anyone else. I've known other people to have gone through with it, but not to have been close with them to know what they actually went through. So once you accept it, then you want to fight. So because sometimes you feel like, okay, I don't think I can do this. But once you accept it, fighting is all that you want to do. You want to fight to live.
Amen. Amen. I wanted to ask, so you journaled on your own. Are you considering, since you've had the writing bug, are you considering possibly publishing your journals or your writings? Do you plan on doing any more writing again?
Well, Mark and I have considered doing something together as caretaker and patient, I guess, kind of per se. Well, as far as my journaling, my journals, because I did them sporadically and they're not like consistent daily, because I'll start something and hit one of them points where I just can't continue. So probably I've not considered that as far as publishing those, simply because some days I've gone to look back, I'm like, I wrote a few sentences and then it's 2 or 3 days before I do another one. And I'm like, okay, why didn't I finish the day before? So I'm not sure if I'll do that. But he and I, we've considered doing something together. Wanted to do something from the caretaker standpoint and how it was for him.
Healing together.
Yes.
Nice title.
That's what I do.
And we want other people to know it doesn't have to be a cancer diagnosis, but because there are so many other sicknesses that caretakers need care too. And because we were going through this time during the pandemic, it was hard for him. I felt that I had more support outside than he did, because sometimes men just don't.
He tried to kick me out the house a couple times, Brother Tim.
I wanted him to
She wanted me to go out and have fun with somebody. She wanted me to be with somebody else, not around her.
Oh,
some of his friends, somebody where he could relax. So he did have one or two people, but again, they were also trying to be cautious, knowing he had to come back home,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it was a little bit harder, I think, for him as far as the isolation, because he was, when I say caretaker, he had to do, some point he had to do everything. You know, with cooking, I had to be in another whole room because I would get so nauseated from the smell. I couldn't even just be in the same room with him. So he had to do everything. So I'm sure mind-wise, physically, it was a lot for him. So I know he has a lot he can tell or maybe help other people who are being caretakers for other people for whatever situation, whether it's cancer, kidney failure, whatever illness or whatever situation, a caretaker is demanding on a caretaker.
Yes, it is.
So, Brother Hatim, it's funny you said that about the title. You actually just completed the title because actually, initially the title was going to be One Good Man, but I'm actually going to put the other part on there, One Good Man Healing Together.
Wow, I love that.
I think that would be, your book would be a bestseller.
Stellar.
You all are such an excellent couple that book would just help. I think it would just help everyone, even sick or not, because you all have such wisdom. And you're right. I tell anyone, caretaking is really hard, and that caretaker needs that support. And being a man on top of that, you could really like speak to other men and bring the feelings and validate the feelings that men tend to keep to themselves because they don't think other people are going through it.
Or
it's interesting.
they feel ashamed to share those feelings because we shouldn't have them. We're not allowed to have them.
Yes.
It's interesting. It's interesting y'all say that because on days, actually the days that I would cry was when I was riding my truck by myself. I was in my office by myself. Because the first day when Kathy got diagnosed, we both cried together. And I made a promise that I would never cry in front of her again while she was fighting this battle. So I had to find, because I had to learn that crying is not a bad thing. It's actually a healing as well. Right. And actually helped me get through certain parts, because for a while there, when it was getting deep into the hole where I couldn't go to treatments with her anymore, I was facing a bout of a little bit of depression. Didn't even realize I was because I've learned being a mental health worker, we're the last book for services. So I didn't realize what I was actually battling myself, trying to make sure I'm taking care of her needs.
We are so thankful for you both. Thankful for your dedication and your commitment. And there's another question. I know I keep going back to this question, but just in a general sense, in terms of when you decided that you wanted to change your lifestyle, you decided that there was a need for you to change your lifestyle. How difficult was it for you to find those things that you needed? So for example, right, you said that you try to do as much organic food as you can. How difficult was it for you to find that? How difficult was it for you to, or was it difficult for you to find the organic foods, for you to, I guess maybe you said you used the plugins. How difficult was it for you to change those environmental aspects? Is there, and then also, while you're thinking of that answer, is there enough support, do you feel, for people to live a healthy life, a preventative life?
As far as finding organic foods, some things, of course, you're trying to find something that you like, that you're going to kind of stick with. We live in a small town, so they're not always readily available, but there are things, Columbia is close and we can go to other places to purchase items, but not so much of the difficulty. It's just more expensive. And of course, it's easier to eat bad. I mean, well, I won't say bad, fast food is cheaper. So therefore, that when I say it makes it hard, because sometimes I want to just say, okay, I'll just settle for fast food, but that's not the right thing to do. Well, for me, that's not what I want to do. I want to stick with the better, but sometimes prices make me think I could just go ahead and let me get some fast food and be on my way. But I know that that's not good for my body, for my system. So I just have to make that sacrifice. So therefore, maybe not always being so hard to find, it's just making that right choice, because it's a little bit, no, it's a lot more expensive when you're buying it daily, when you're buying it
Yes,
to
it is.
feed yourself for a week, or whatever. And so I want to be proactive with preparing lunch for the next day for work. So if I, so you have to buy a little bit more because I'm going to use it more. But even though it's more expensive, it's worth it in the end.
And can I say this? The interesting part about this was my first time facing being selfish in this process. When she said about changing her diet, I'm like, you the one had the sickness.
Oh my God.
Why I got to change? Why I got to eat something different? And I didn't realize the bigger picture at the time because I was more focused on being selfish. That by changing going to the same dietary thing she was doing would actually help me as well.
Preventative.
Yeah, because the little issues I've been going through since last November, the change of diet has actually probably helped me get better with this quicker than I thought it would.
But isn't it strange how fruits and vegetables that have not been sprayed with anything, that has not been processed, right, can end up being more expensive in these stores?
Yes.
I mean, who would have thought that? That's a brilliant business model. You know what I'm saying? We don't do nothing to it, and it's gonna be ugly. Because you can tell organic fruit because it's ugly.
It's ugly.
You know what I'm saying? It's ugly, right? So we're gonna take these little ugly fruit and we're gonna make them higher than the regular fruit. We're gonna take these ugly greens and make them. It makes no sense to me. But hey.
I think the bigger question, it just kind of stirs these wheels in my head to think, a person doesn't necessarily have to be diagnosed with cancer. It is that, like Brother Hatem was alluding to, but he wasn't alluding to, he just said it bluntly, the foods that we eat, the environment that we're around is not conducive to the healthiest of living. You have to make a conscious and be cognizant, make a conscientious choice to go outside of. There was a podcast that I listened to real quick. This was this lady who did a project, and she said, for an entire year, I want to buy only Black, I only buy Black stuff. And they lived in Chicago. She said it was so difficult to find a Black-owned grocery store, to find, it's not hard to find a Black hair salon, beauty supply, barbershop. But, in terms of even a Black-owned gas station, all of those things that could benefit us. She said she had to drive.
Right.
She had to drive 45 minutes to get to a Black-owned gas station. So, 45 minutes in Chicago to get to a Black-owned gas station, she was like, what's the whole point? She said, but she figured out something. She, purchased a gas card from the guy that owned the Black-owned gas station. And then she would get her gas at places a little closer. But she said she had to go to the gas stations to get food, because there weren't, there was a Black-owned grocery store, but then it eventually closed. So her and her family for an entire year were struggling, and it brought up the concern that there are things that we need that we don't necessarily know that we need.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Especially in terms of African American, supplies. Of course, we could find a barber. Of course, we could find a beauty, but there are more that we need now. So when I was a teacher, I would tell my students all the time, what do you want to do? What I would recommend, what do you want to do with your life? What I would recommend to them would be to find an area where, it wasn't enough of us there. So at every aspect of your life, there should be someone who looks like you providing that service for you.
We got a
doctor, lawyer, all of that.
But
Brother
we gotta help them find that, because
Yes.
I mean, who would
Right.
think about the importance of a farmer? I mean, with fast food and with our kids, because you ask a second grader in some places, they'll tell you ketchup is a vegetable. So, I mean,
Whoa.
y'all, this is real. Now, because what I neglected to talk about when you was talking about the skincare and stuff like that is one of the things that systematic oppression definitely stops for our people is the idea of controlling staples. You'll never hear, regardless of where Chinese people are, you'll never hear about Chinese people going to another group of people to buy their rice.
Nope.
They got their own food that, if they was walking to a Chinese restaurant that had somebody that looked like Florida Evans behind there, you know what I'm saying? They're gonna walk back out. So they take care of their staples. I even noticed this with Africans that come here to America. If you go anywhere where there's groups of them, they already have stores set up. You can find everything that you need if you come. When it comes to us, nah, there's nothing. You know what I'm saying? We might have owned a corner store, but now we have others that come in and take all the money out of our community. So I mean that's part of the stress that we under. That's part of the attack that we under, because a lot of people know that when you have a dependent population, you could do what you want to.
Anything.
Yes.
And you could charge whatever you want to charge.
Charge whatever you want.
So at the end of the podcast, the lady said, for those people who are Generation Zers, these millennials, and the younger people who are really into the entrepreneurial spirit, this could very well be an opportunity for them. So rather than necessarily looking at it from a bleak perspective, this could be an opportunity for them to create those spaces, to create those things that we need, to create those staples, to open up these grocery stores. We had a brother who was on the call sometime earlier this year who was a farmer down in Florida. I think his name is Big Steel, Malcolm Steel or something. Man, I've connected with him and I'm so excited. I haven't had an opportunity to purchase anything from him per se, but I definitely support him in his efforts of being a Black in terms of being a Black farmer.
Can I say this also too? The one thing that I always get on the millennials about, they have a term they got to get out their vocabulary, and it's called being selfish. Sometimes they block their own growth because of their own selfishness. And they wonder, because like a lot of us in our generation, we want to support us, but they make it hard sometimes to support us. Because it's just like, if you got a Black-owned business, why you don't have it in a Black neighborhood?
Ain't that crazy?
Yeah.
Ain't that crazy? And then,
Yes.
if you have a Black business, why do all of our business lean on the fringe of wants rather than needs?
Needs. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? You always gonna need to eat.
Yes.
We know some people will skip getting their hair cut to make sure that they got food. You know what I'm saying? We're not looking at utilities, because every last one of us, we got heat bills, we got gas bills, we got electric bills. We're not looking at these industries and how possibly we could get in on that needed money. All the needs have been conquered by other people. And, and we always going to be in this position because we want to build our businesses on what people want.
Well, can I say this, brother Hatem? It's interesting, me being on the zoning board for the city of Manning, I've actually learned a lot about how business are actually placed. So they call minority communities, the dollar menu.
Yes.
Wait, what?
That's what they call it, because that's what they'll buy from. You can't put Applebee's in certain neighborhoods because they're not going to go to Applebee's. They're going to go to McDonald's. They're going to go to Hardee's. They're not going to go to those places. And so when we start labeling ourselves like that, we wonder why sometimes we can't get certain businesses in our neighborhood, because we put ourselves in a position to be labeled that way. So that business is not going to put themselves in a position to fail trying to do what's right. They'd rather be successful.
And that's so sad because again, that's systemic and it's not our fault. It's
Correct.
not, it is
Well-
not our fault. We
well,
just,
I will argue that. I would say partial, because there's certain decisions that each of us make that assist in where we are. But we could tie this all the way back into the whole cancer piece. We have decisions. Because like I said, yes, there is a side for them. But the issue that I want us to address is what can we take responsibility for and start to fix? Because there's certain decisions that we're making that's making it possible for this to continue. And then on top of that, these decisions are putting us in bad environments that causes us to be sick, whether we're talking about cancer or whether we're talking about autoimmune diseases, because I have never in my life, in all 53 years, my fault, I think I'm 50.
yeah,
I
I think
don't
you
know
are
no more.
54.
I don't know no more. I know on my birthday, I'll do the math. But in my 40s, I started running into so many people that was either getting cancer or had some type of autoimmune disease that they had to totally change their life because of. I'm sitting up here like, I was a nosy kid. I don't remember all my grandparents' friends just popping up with these ailments. They just would die. I mean, and a lot of them some of them still alive. And I'm sitting up here like, yo, where's all this coming from? Where's all this coming from? But I digress.
No, but I think you bring up a great point. And again, it's always in the vein of what we always talk about every week, about health, about wellness, about opening up the opportunities for knowledge. So this is important. And we could continue these conversations. We could continue this discussion. But I know that it is
mentioned.
Yes.
We were talking about the foods and preparing foods, and when I mentioned eating more at home, because I can prepare more for myself, for us, as the way I think. One of my physicians, he is totally against using the microwave
And
air fryers.
Mhm.
He's against. Is he against air fryers too?
Air
Yes.
fryers, anything that cooks food fast,
All right. High heat.
he's against it because of how fast it's cooked. Like he said, if you're going to grill food, use a gas grill because you can control the heat. A charcoal grill, you can't control the heat. Anything that's cooked fast can cause cancer growing stuff. So
Wow.
he mentions if you're going to reheat your food, reheat it on the stove, not or in the oven, but not a microwave oven. Or grill food, he said to use a gas grill instead of a charcoal grill. So plastics, when you're if you're going to use the microwave, use a glass dish, not the convenient plastic containers, because of that high heat, and that plastic goes directly into your food. So, and he's like, whenever you're eating, so there are times where I work, we only have a microwave, so it's not like I'm gonna be able to heat my food on the stove or in the oven. So many times I will have a salad, or I will have something that I don't have to use the microwave for. And when I do use the microwave, I'm using a glass container, a glass dish, instead of the convenient plastic dishes. And so if you're going to use the microwave, don't cover your food with that little plastic dome that we try to use to keep everything from splattering in the microwave oven. That's a no-no, because that's high heat, and that plastic, anything goes into your food. He mentioned whenever you're going to use the oven, don't use aluminum pans because of the aluminum. Use a glass dish. So he's really big on and when we're going to use the oven, cooking food at low heat. He says it's better to cook it longer than quicker or fast. So And that's my endocrinologist, because my thyroid was inflamed. And so he's like, he asked, how do you heat your food? Well, of course, I haven't used a microwave. He's like, please limit your microwave use. If you're home, do it on the stove or in the oven. He said he doesn't own a microwave, since he's just that against it because of cancer causing agents.
I think your endocrinologist is brilliant. And as a matter of fact, I think that, we need to hear more from endocrinologists. We really, really do. That's an area that we tend to sort of overlook. Going back to what we mentioned about the deodorant and stuff, those are lymph nodes. Many of our lymph nodes are right up under our arms.
Yes.
So when we use the antiperspirants, the anti-whatever, that's blocking those lymph nodes, like Brother Hatem mentioned, from being able to expel those toxins from our bodies. And so what happens, they return back within our bodies and they set up, and if they're unable to be released, then they cause inflammation and they cause disorders and diseases as well. Yeah. I love what your endocrinologist said. I absolutely love, it was a him, right? I love him.
Yes.
I absolutely
Yes.
love him, because those are tips that we all need to know, whether we have illnesses or not. Those are things that we need to know. Using those, I don't know how to use it, but those old-fashioned cast iron skillets, I don't know how to season them, in other words, to use, but I got one of my grandma's.
YouTube.
Yeah. But
Can-
those and glass.
Can I say something else too?
Yes.
Something I heard was last night, Kathy actually did a speech to a group of women last night as well about all this. And one point she brought was a very valuable point that a lot of people need to understand. If you're seeing a doctor that is not telling you what you need to hear, see another doctor.
Absolutely.
Or if they're not answering your questions, you're your own advocate. You got to advocate for yourself, for your health. And if you're not satisfied with the answers that you're getting,
Move on.
move on.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. Do not be afraid to ask questions, because doctors are only allowed, they're only allowed to give you 5 minutes. That's it. They're on a rotation. So if they're in the room with you, which is why they have nurses that come in before you to do all of the other stuff that the doctor can't afford to do. If he has to spend more than 10 minutes with you, then he's losing money. So he has to come in. Okay, what do you say? What's wrong? Oh, okay, you have this right here. And you tell him, you pretty much telling him what medicine to give you when you tell him what illness or disorder you have. Oh yeah, I got a headache. Okay, well, I got medicine for that. And he's going to give you a prescription. So it's a matter of education, knowing what to ask, knowing your rights, knowing that it is your body. Your body is a self-sustaining, self-maintaining organism that's supposed to, and self-healing organism that's supposed to heal itself. But we have to be aware of what it is that don't take their advice. Like Mark said, get a second opinion, find, be a rebel rouser,
I'm going to ask questions. One of my doctors, he's like, what you got for me today? Because he knows I have my little index card. Sometimes I have a couple questions that I arrange them in priority, what I really, really want to answer to. So I'll put that 1, 2, 3. And if he's kind of hesitant, like, I'm not sure, either you're going to get the answer for me, or I'm going to ask you again, or I'm going to get a referral to somewhere else, because he doesn't know how I feel. So I need to let him know, but I'm going to ask questions. And so, because if I don't ask questions, then, if I don't ask questions for myself, you're just getting money from me, and I'm still needing answers to maybe this feeling that I'm having. And if you kind of if I feel that I'm being dismissed, I'm gonna move on, because you going to the next patient, you're still getting paid, but I still have this issue. So I'm an advocate for asking questions for yourself.
We want to say, hey, Brother Michael, he just joined, and then he texted me. He said it's after 8 o'clock for him, so I think he's gonna go to sleep. So, but hey, Michael, I'm glad to see you. We'll talk later. Yeah, Kathy, you are exactly right. And I just wanted to say that this is a personal story, man. My mom, she never, ever wanted me to ask questions, because even before I became a doctor, I was always, when she was sick, I would always be in the room asking these questions. Her kidney doctor, her heart doctor, all these, I'm asking questions, to the point where she would, as sick as she was, yell at me or try to hit at me or try to grab at me. And I'm like, hell, I need to know the answers to these questions. I don't care nothing about this doctor. He gonna get paid regardless. You know what I mean? He's gonna get paid. And so as my mom was declining in her health, she wouldn't have allowed me to see this prior to, because I was snooping around and went through some of her mail to see how much, just to see what was going on, right? She was on dialysis, and she had been on dialysis for maybe like 10 or 11 years or whatever. Do y'all know how much it costs for a dialysis? And I'm talking, they charge everything from the person wheeling her from the van to the dialysis machine, for someone to hook up the machine, for her to receive her treatment, for her to do whatever. It was $106,000 every month. I kid you not.
$106,000.
$106,000 every single solitary month that the government was being charged, because she received Medicare and Medicaid. Well, if she had to come up with that amount of money out of her pocket, that would be ridiculous. But because this was on the government's dime, they're charging and charging and charging for her to still have been in that scenario, for her to still have been in a health case, and began to decline. Now, going back to our diets, she did choose to eat ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She did choose to eat scrambled eggs. Like, she ate whatever she wanted. She did choose to eat or drink like orange soda pop or whatever. That was her choice. And I mean, I tried and tried and tried. I fussed, I prayed, I cussed, I used the Bible, just all these things to try to get her to speak her language.
How did you use the Bible against a red soda? That's against orange soda.
Well, they say let me pull out my good book here. In the book of Do Not Eat This Food, chapter 5, verse 16, you're not supposed to eat. You're not
You're
supposed
going to dust up on that one, because that wouldn't have worked on me neither. Give me another
That
orange soda.
It's somewhere in the Bible, somewhere in the Word. But so yeah, she didn't like questions, and I ask a lot of questions. Why not? Why you can't? Why can't you?
I had to do that with him. When he would go to the doctor by himself, I would send him with questions because I knew he wasn't going to ask it. And so he knew when he came back home, I'm going to say, what did the doctor say? But I'm going to also say, what did the doctor say about the questions I gave you to ask the doctor? And he knew he couldn't come back without asking those questions, because if not, then I'm going back with you the next time and I'm going to ask those questions. So
I didn't know I was living with a school teacher. So
yeah.
I mean, but if you don't ask for yourself, how you gonna know?
Yeah.
I mean, or if they prescribe you a particular medication, why did they prescribe you this particular medication? Just don't take it just because they prescribe it. I need to know why and what some of the side effects, because all medication has side effects from one thing or the other.
And one medication is a contraindication of something else. So it, potentially conflicts with something else. So you want to know as much as you can. Yeah.
So one day we do have to get in discussion about pharmaceutical companies there, because
Damn
I've
right.
actually learned a lot about that process right there, why things are done the way it's done too.
Well, Mark, that's a good conversation to have. Would you like to lead that conversation potentially, possibly?
I would.
Oh, good. Good.
Because I've been working at mental health, I've actually seen a lot of that firsthand and how things are done and why it's done the way it's done, particularly to us. So it needs to be addressed.
Oh, absolutely. That's going to be a hot conversation. I know that I have dominated the conversation with so many questions. Is there anything that anyone else would like to add? We have I'm not sure who this is, LGELMK920.
Yes.
They got their hand up too.
Do they?
Yeah.
Like the mouses. Like the mouse. No, they don't. That was our mouse. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I don't know who they are.
Yeah, I don't know who that person is.
Well, welcome.
Yes.
Hello.
Welcome to the family.
Okay, so if there are not any other questions or any other comments, I would like to ask Brother Mark to give us a concluding word, a good word for the week. But I'd also like to thank you both for taking the time out of your schedule and for sharing with us and having this dialogue about wellness, the road to wellness.
Can I just add, just in closing, I just want to encourage everyone, men, women, your significant others, to get your mammograms yearly. Don't put it off, because like I said, I was getting mine every year since the age of 40. But so in 2019 was when they noticed the change. And had I not been getting one yearly every time before that, they would have not had anything to compare it to say, okay, last year, so they went back 2 or 3 years, there was nothing there. But in 2019, there was a difference. But had I not been getting them, they would not have had anything to compare it to. So I just want to push people to please get your mammograms or any other screenings that you may need. Because so many people, especially us, it happens, we need to be more proactive. So I encourage, I know some people say they don't want to know, but maybe you might want to know, because you could prolong your life. You could live a longer life, if you do, so therefore, get your screenings, your colonoscopies, everything. Get all of that done. Encourage your significant others. Like I say, men get breast cancer as well. It's may not be as well known, because people see cancer as wanting to see it, do it secretly, and therefore some people are ashamed. Many people, once they heard about me having breast cancer, they're going like, you gonna tell about it? Once I accepted that was gonna be my journey, yes, I could talk about it. Prior to that, I may not have been as open, but if it's gonna help somebody else, because I really don't want anybody to go through what I went through, but if it can help someone else, sure, I'll tell about it. So get your mammograms, do your monthly checks. Where mine was positioned when it was first found, I would not have been able to find it on my own because of where it was located. So therefore, those screenings are a must, because if I'd have just been examining myself, I wouldn't have found it. So therefore, get your breasts, and ask for a 3D screening that shows a little